Welcome to Watch Party Recaps. Today we have a 2022 comedy, science fiction, action and adventure movie called The Mystery Men. Warning, spoilers ahead and enjoy. In Champion City, where the most famous and greatest superhero, Captain Amazing resides, is constantly having crime sprees across the city. The movie opens in a retirement home, where the elderly is having an event. With live music, they are dancing and mingling. Everyone is having a good time, until a gang called the Red Eyes come crashing in to rob everybody. Suddenly an amateur superhero team of Mr. Furious, the Shoveler and the Blue Raja attempt to make a name for themselves, but their inexperience, infighting, and dubious abilities generally result in defeat and frustration. While trying to stop a robbery in progress, Captain Amazing suddenly comes in through the roof, spinning and kicking, taking out each member of the gang with one blow in such a short time. He is then approached by his attorney and starts walking out the door without checking on anybody. The Shoveler and Blue Raja suddenly stop Captain Amazing to praise him for coming and saving them. He arrogantly mocks them by telling them to keep up the good work, then leaves. Before leaving themselves, the trio are approached by Dr. A. Heller, a weapons designer that offers his services to them if they want it. The Shoveler takes his card and leaves. While outside, Amazing is approached by reporters and the paparazzi, then without knowing is told that he lost his Pepsi endorsement. Inside the limo, Captain Amazing is furious that his amazing crime-fighting prowess has practically made his job obsolete. Without any worthy adversaries, most are either dead, in exile, or in jail. His corporate sponsors are beginning to withdraw support. He soon finds out the only worthy adversary left is Casanova Frankenstein. Then to create a need for his services, Amazing, using his alter ego, billionaire lawyer Lance Hunt, suddenly comes into the hearing of Casanova Frankenstein, lying to the board by reading off a fake note that appears to be his shopping list. Tells them that Captain Amazing is asking the board to give Casanova Frankenstein a second chance. Without disagreeing or questioning, the board releases him. Meanwhile, in a diner, Mr. Furious, the Shoveler and the Blue Raja argue over what happened at the retirement home. Out of anger, Mr. Furious starts mocking their waitress. Outside, the trio sees Tony C and Tony P, leader of the Disco Boys, coming out of their car to make a phone call. Finding them suspicious, Mr. Furious wants to tail the two. But Shoveler and Raja call it a night because they have a curfew, leaving him alone. At Shoveler's home, worried that his need to be a superhero will get him killed, his wife tries to convince him to stop and retire. At Raja's house, while practicing his catchphrase, is interrupted by his mother. She asks what the smoke is and wonders if his son is smoking reefer. Embarrassed, he tells her to get out and closes the door on her, then accidentally sits on one of his forks. Meanwhile, at Casanova Frankenstein's house, Furious is hiding in the bushes watching the windows. Inside, Casanova is cleaned up and reunites with Tony P, telling him to gather his gang, while blowing up the asylum from his balcony. Outside near the bushes, Furious witnesses all this and sees Captain Amazing flying towards the mansion. Inside, Amazing confronts Casanova about blowing up the asylum. While walking towards Casanova, Amazing spots a device in the trash can and believes it to be the remote used to blow up the asylum, without knowing it's actually a device that shoots out a sleeping gas, knocking out Amazing. The next morning, Furious returns to his job at the junkyard, where he is ordered by an angry Karen to junk an armored tank. In the process, he hears on the radio that Captain Amazing is missing. He quickly gathers Shoveler and Raja to head towards Casanova's mansion, where Amazing was last seen. Inside the mansion, Casanova has Amazing strapped to a chair, where he tells him about his plans of killing him at midnight and destroying the city. Meanwhile outside, the trio sneaks through the yard trying to find a way inside. Once they reach the back door, they are surprised by Tony P and Tony C along with the rest of the Disco Boys, then jumps them. Afterwards, at the same diner as before, they discuss recruiting more members to join them in rescuing Captain Amazing. On the way out, Furious tries to apologize to the waiter he mocked from before and asks her out on a date but fails. Their first recruit is the Invisible Boy, whose powers only work when nobody is looking at him. They are skeptical about his powers and decide to just leave, but convinces them by telling them he knows other superhero wannabes that they might be interested on recruiting. They come back to the diner and discuss possible new recruits when they are interrupted by the Spleen, a very odd-smelling man whose powers consist of using his farts to knock out people. He then finds out that they are recruiting and decides to join them. They host a party to recruit new members, where they meet the wacky and powerless wannabe superheroes, not wanting to recruit any of them. After, when everybody leaves, feeling disappointed and on the verge of quitting, they are approached with a late visitor, the bowler, who actually has a power that could throw a bowling ball that flies around on its own. Impressed, they all decide to recruit her. They all start riding around to find some crime to test the new recruits, till they find Casanova's limo passing by them on the street. Without hesitating, they start following them. Casanova notices them and pulls up to them instead. The mystery men all get out to confront Casanova and find out that he is accompanied by Tony P and Tony C. Tony P notices who the bowler is and tells her he is the one who killed her father. The group starts to attack the limo, smashing windows and denting the car. They leave before Casanova and his henchmen are able to get out. Afterwards, they celebrate at a bar, drinking and getting to know each other better. The bowler then explains that it's her father's skull inside the bowling ball and only she is able to communicate with it. Soon after, they come outside, where the disco boys are waiting for them, lining them up to be shot. Then suddenly all their guns are cut in half and start to flee. It is soon revealed that the person who saved them was the Sphinx, a famous superhero that has the ability to cut objects in half. The Sphinx tells the group that they are unprepared to take on Casanova and his gangs. The team all votes to have the Sphinx train them and he agrees. Next, they are taken to a hidden area by a lake to practice and work on their new costumes. Frustrated at the thought of not immediately going after Casanova, Furious decides to go off on his own, leaving the group. After some arguing, they soon realize that they would need some weapons to help them take on Casanova. Shoveler remembers Dr. A. Heller and pulls out his card. They soon drive to his workshop out in the middle of the desert, where they find Heller meditating in an odd pose. Meanwhile, at the diner, Furious is alone and successfully asks the waitress to walk her home. Back at the workshop, Heller shows off his collection of non-lethal weapons to the group, like the can tornado, shrinker gun that could shrink a person's clothes, and a blame thrower that causes people to argue. During the night after work, Furious walks the waitress back to her house and have a heart-to-heart, not noticing that they are followed by the disco boys. The rest of the group loads up the weapons and get ready to head to Casanova's to rescue Amazing, when they are stopped by Furious. In his own way apologizes and gets invited to join them again. At Casanova's, he has invited all the gangs in the city like the Susies, the Suits, the Furriers, the Frat Boys, and the Not-So-Goody Mob, where he explains to them his master plan. At the same time, the group sneaks into Casanova's and finds Captain Amazing in a basement strapped to a chair that has a weapon called the Psychofraculator pointing at him. In a panic, they accidentally turn on the weapon, killing Amazing. The group quickly leaves before Casanova arrives with his guests. Back at the workshop, the group argues again about what happened and decides to run away until the Shoveler gives a speech that encourages the group, and they all decide to take down Casanova themselves. Furious mentions an armored tank in the junkyard and Heller agrees to fix it up. They all go back to their homes and say their goodbyes to their loved ones before they start putting on their new costumes and get inside the tank to head towards Casanova's. They charge into the mansion with the tank, where all the gangs start shooting at them. The group turns on a magnet inside the tank, taking away their guns. Then the gangs and Casanova run into the disco room, turning on a laser beam that shoots at anybody that approaches. Invisible Boy finally uses his powers and reveals that he truly does have the ability to turn invisible. Inside the disco room they are approached by the furriers and they shoot them with the shrinker, shrinking their clothes till they collapse. The group splits off. Shoveler takes out some disco boys and Tony C. Invisible Boy and Spleen knocks out some Susies with Spleen's powers. Bowler gets revenge for her father by using her bowling ball that has her father's skull inside and kills him by lunging him into a wall. They regroup, finding Casanova on top of the stairs holding the waitress hostage, turning on some electricity on the steps that kills some frat boys and then turns on the psychofraculator that starts destroying the city. Out of anger, Mr. Furious starts climbing the wall with the help of Raja. On top of the stairs, Mr. Furious and Casanova have a final showdown that ends with Furious throwing Casanova into the psychofraculator, killing him. The rest of the team helps the bowler to destroy the device and escape the mansion as it implodes. The movie ends when the team is swarmed by reporters who want to know the group's name. As they argue possible names among themselves, one reporter ends up calling them the Mystery Men, but the others are too busy arguing to hear it. The end.